I would like to actually ask Dr. Mary Byrd to come here. She's here, wonderful. She's going to be our moderator. I will just introduce her, and then I will ask her to introduce all other panels. Dr. Mary Byrd is an associate professor and the director of the School of Education at our school here at the University of South Florida, Sarasota Manatee. She has a strong background in urban school education with 15 years of service in the Miami-Dade Country Public Schools, Miami, Florida. Dr. Byrd's current scholarship centers on the extensive topic of research-based best practices that fosters academic, social, and educational student success in socioeconomically, racially, technically, and culturally diverse schools. Please join me welcome Dr. Mary Byrd to this wonderful panel.
Thank you so much, Jihan, and thank you for inviting me to serve as a moderator of this panel. I'd like to introduce our panelists for the day. When I call your name, I want you to just come up, and I think this is the route you need to take. Because I was going to take that route, I'm like, no, not in my heels. That wouldn't look pretty. So I'd like you to come up, and I'm going to allow you to tell us a little bit about you, okay? Dr. Alisha Braun, give her a round of applause. From the University of South Florida, go Bulls. Dr. Lois Harmon, come up please. She's from William Jessup University. Dr. Wendy Ruchti.
It's actually Ruchti, unless I do know there is somebody here from Germany, and they would say Ruchti.
Oh, but we say Ruchti. Okay. Welcome, Wendy. And Dr. Joanne Keeley. Joanne? Oh, there she is. Come on up, Joanne. Okay, there's a seat for you right there. Is Joanne on the first or second panel?
Joanne's in the second panel.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And that's your seat if you prefer to sit.
Okay, I certainly will. Sorry, Joanne.
Joanne is at 1 p.m. in the Future of Education. By the way, isn't that wonderful? All ladies, right? Yeah. Sometimes, like, I was so impressed with that, so that's great.
Okay, welcome everyone. I have a little quote to share with you prior to starting. I found this quote in an article sort of giving a narrative of the tenure track process, okay? And I'm sure all of you will be able to relate to this quote. It says, becoming a tenure track professor is similar to getting a driver's license. Do you remember that? Some maybe not, but yes. It's all of a sudden you have all of this freedom, and you can turn where you want to turn, go where you want to go. But on the other hand, you have to pay for gas, and you have to get some responsibility. It's not all fun and games, but the process of getting there is very meaningful. And then what you do once you get that license, that's up to you. I would like our panel just to tell a little bit about themselves as far as where, your name again, where you work, what you teach, your research focus, and how long have you been in your position, okay? So I will pass it down. Oh, you have it. Okay, go ahead.
All right, good morning. Can you hear me okay? All right.
Maybe a little louder?
Oh, okay. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. I don't think I can adjust the box. So I'll just have to move this closer. Okay. So Good morning, everyone. My name is Alisha Braun. I just finished my second year as an assistant professor at the University of South Florida, the Tampa campus. And my program area is Social Foundations. I'm in the Department of Educational and Psychological Studies. So in terms of my teaching responsibilities, I teach a variety of graduate and undergraduate courses. My undergraduate class, the main one that I teach is called Schools and Societies. So, thinking about social foundations, talking about the purpose of school, the context of school, why do we have education, those kind of big picture questions. And then graduate level wise, I teach some methods courses. So I teach a class on interviewing, qualitative research methods course, as well as my background is in educational policy. So I teach some policy development courses as well. Research-wise, my primary research interests are on the inclusive education of students with disabilities, especially in developing contexts in sub-Saharan Africa.
And how long?
So just finished my second year, entering my third year. Yeah.
Ah, mid-tenure.
Yes.
We love that.
Fun times.
Good morning, everyone. I am Lois Harmon, and I work at William Jessup University. I'm an assistant professor. This is my second year, and I coordinate our Masters of Arts in Teaching program. So for this program, teachers can go and get a credential, and they can also earn a master's. So within that program, I teach the foundational courses, so educational foundations, as well as research methods. I also teach another Masters of Arts in Education program for those who are doing a full thesis and going into nonprofits or industry, other sectors of education. I teach the methods courses in that program. And I also teach some undergrad courses, just educational psychology, any foundations courses, any curriculum and instruction methods courses, just usually wherever I'm needed.
Thank you.
My name is Wendy Ruchti, and I am from Idaho State University. It's a little hard to say how long I've been in this position because I've had a little bit of a different trajectory. I started out about, I want to say it was 8 years ago as an associate lecturer, moved into an assistant professor position, was in that position for about 3 years, and decided to leave higher ed for about 3 years to work for a national nonprofit. If you're familiar with EL Education is what it's called now, or Expeditionary Learning. I worked as a school coach for about 3 years with those schools that were implementing that model. Came back to higher ed 2 years ago. So, like I say, a little bit of a different trajectory, which poses some challenges to the questions that we are all talking about today. Is what are those challenges, right? My current research is in project-based learning, and I am a science and STEM education professor. We're a small university, a small public university, so most of us in the College of Education, in our department anyway, we teach pretty much any course that we're asked to teach. So I think I've taught every course in our undergraduate over the years, our undergraduate teacher prep program. I currently focus on science methods in our undergraduate program, and I also am the director of our Master of Arts in Teaching program, and I teach a class in motivation and management at the graduate level. Did I answer your questions?
Very thoroughly. Thank you. So I always like to start off with the positive, rather than saying, oh, what's wrong with tenure track? Well, we could go on and on about that, right? Let's start off with the positive. What do you love about your profession? And we can be as succinct as possible so we can get on to the challenges. Okay?
I love that I can make an impact in the world, and I truly believe that it's a place where I can both impact future teachers, current teachers, and their students. So you just multiply that impact that you have. It's the biggest driving factor that I have most days.
How many of you are in agreement with that, making an impact as far as being faculty? Yes.
I also love the critical conversations that I
We've all had the moment where we're in faculty mode after teaching, and then we go to a friend or home. Those people who aren't in faculty mode, you get sort of a strange look and you tone it down. Okay. So that transition, we all understand those critical conversations that you can only have in higher education.
So, building upon what you ladies are saying, I really like the freedom to be able to develop and set the course of my own research plan and research what I find to be the most interesting and meaningful and make valuable contributions and impact that way.
Having that autonomy to sort of navigate your own path and create your own path. So here's the question. I did communicate with these ladies via email, and they sent me suggestions as far as the challenges. But could you explain what your number one challenge has been being tenure track and being in higher education?
So number one, it's probably tightly related to what I love most about my job, is that freedom. So while that is amazing and empowering, it's also challenging to maintain focus, especially with all of the demands that are placed upon us internally and externally. When you have to worry about teaching, research, service, all of those components are very multifaceted. And so balancing that to be able to take advantage of that freedom and not take on too much too fast.
We all get microphones now, so we don't have to share. Not that we can. So the freedom of the challenge, the benefit is the freedom, but then it's also a challenge. You're spending too much time on one, not enough on another. We know how we can all get engrossed into teaching, which is why we came into the profession, but that's not the best the mode to take when we have other areas that we have to give equal, if not more, time.
I think my challenge is unique to my role, and Wendy can probably relate, having to do teaching,
Mic up closer.
having to teach as well as do administration. So often wearing two different hats. So overseeing faculty, curriculum, students, and then also grading and prepping and finding the time to research and engage in service is often a challenge with balancing all of the responsibilities.
What they said. But that is those. But I would add to that, for me, I think we all are in this also because we just love learning. We love, I go to these conferences and I want to attend every session and I can't because I just find them all very intriguing and interesting. And I think for me that's been a struggle because I'm fascinated by so many different areas and want to learn more about so many different things, both in my field and then outside of my field, that it's been hard for me to narrow. So just my focus for research especially has just been a little bit all over the place, also because I just had a long trajectory too, a lot of time.
So Wendy, I'm going to ask this question, then each of you, if you could respond. If you were to sort of gauge the percentage of time you spend currently on research, teaching, and service, just give me percentages, not what your annual report says, but the actuality. And then compare that to how much time you spent when you started. What changed and the amount of time that you spent. So maybe I should go, when you first started, what was your percentage of each? And then what is it now? And then what changed that?
Excellent question, and this will go back to what you were talking about, to not necessarily just talking about the challenges, but when I first started, our university gave us a course buyout for research. So there was this time that you were able to develop as a researcher. So I was able to probably spend 25% of my time working on my research and carved that out and really had some good focus time. So if your university doesn't do that, and that's something I think was a huge gift to me. And this question is a little tricky too, because I'm 9 months on contract, but I don't see my job as a 9-month job, and I usually don't pick up teaching courses in the summer because I want to work on what I want to work on, and that's typically my research. So if you look at it over the span of a year, maybe still in that 25%. If you look at it during the school year, it's more like 2%, like maybe 10. So
That's interesting, and how many of you can relate to that? The summertime is your unpaid research time. Yes. Okay, Lois?
And so I'm at a teaching university, so the priority really is on teaching. When I started my job, I could jump into the process of California just recently updated the teacher performance expectations, and we were also preparing for a site visit, which we just successfully did full accreditation this past February. So that's of the bulk of my time, that and managing all of the local curricula, instruction. So I didn't get a chance to do a lot of research. I am on a 12-month contract. However, I don't have to teach or really work during the summer. So they your professional development and research time is embedded within the summer. So I do get a lot done during the summer like now. And then I have a course relief for fall, given that the way when I started, we were doing a lot of site visits or site visit prep. So now I would say as of February, after that, maybe about 25%, but during the summer, I can probably bump it up to 80 and still have a life.
Thank you, Alisha.
That's beautiful, having a life. All right, this is so hard to think of the numbers. So I'm just going to talk in generalities. I'm not going to quantify it. So when I first started, because I had more new preps teaching-wise, I think I spent more time teaching. How much more, again, I apologize, I can't quantify it. And then so that would be my first year. And then my second year, I spent, it's not like teaching, fell off the responsibility list at all. And I do find myself being drawn into that more, because I love that and I enjoy that, and so I want to also spend my time doing that, but then I feel guilty when I'm not spending my time on research. So this past year, I do think objectively I've spent more of my time on research compared to my first year, just because I didn't have the same amount of prep time. But yeah, not
So,
much.
Alisha, do you have a personal life? How is that personal, work, home, professional balance, work-life balance going for you?
Yeah. So yeah, based on my response to the previous comment, yes. Yes.
So what's worked for you? Do you leave it at work?
So it's a constant challenge, and I'm pretty sure when we were communicating over email, I listed that as one of my challenges, is maintaining work-life balance, especially tenure track as opposed to, so previously I was in an instructional role, and so when I held that position, I found it easier to maintain work-life balance, but tenure track, when research is just there all the time, and there is that growing pressure, that publication pressure, I do have this guilt that's, kind of constantly on my shoulders, and so trying not to take that home with me is a constant challenge. So this year, my family has changed a little bit. So I recently gave birth to a baby girl. And yeah, thank you. And so that has forced me to have more work-life balance, because when I am home with her, I need to be home with her. It is not an option to be on my computer, because she will let me know that is not okay, in the form of a lot of tears. and I want to be a good mother as well, so there's the guilt there too, and priorities. So yeah, interestingly, I think that, well, that has also added a new dynamic to my life and the time that I need to be devoting to her at home. I think that that's going to be good for me work-wise, because it's going to make me really make my time in the office as productive as possible, so that when I'm home, I can be home.
And thank you. I have a 15-year-old, and she's gone through everything with me. She's been my partner, and she's gone almost all the conferences. And she remembers me talking about, oh, I got to finish this publication, I got to finish this article. And so that guilt, it's still there a little bit. We're managing it, but it's always there. Okay.
I do think people with families have better work-life balances because you're kind of forced to. I do try to leave work at work, however, I'm always at work. So I don't think I really have a balance because I'm like, okay, I'll stay in the office until 10, or I'll go in on the weekend because I don't want to work at home. So sometimes it just depends on what my work schedule is as far as my course schedule with grading and what it looks like. So again, even though you have that flexibility, it's just kind of never ending.
So I was lucky enough when I came back, I was able to do a little reset, which I feel really blessed about. And when I came back to higher ed, I had some experience with not having work-life balance at all. I was not successful. I didn't mean that as a double negative, but I mean like a lot of emphasis on I did not have work-life balance, and I had kids at home at the time. So strangely enough, like my kids are now not at home, but I've made a huge commitment and effort since I came back. It was super, super important to me to have work-life balance, and so I do feel like I've been able to do that. Now we will see when I'll be going up for tenure. We'll see if that actually pans out for me, but but I do feel like I try to look at a 40-hour work week. I'm not always successful at that, and like I said, I do work in the summers because I can, so that's helpful. But I know you're all like, really, do you do anything, and like, how does that work? But I just really made the commitment and decided that was important to me. My husband and I decided that was really important. We want to do things on the weekend together, and so I feel like I do have work-life balance now.
Wonderful. Now. Wonderful. So everyone's spoken about their research. When you first enter or re-enter this field, the question is, do you write? How do you find research partners? Do you choose to write alone? Will they give you first author, second author, etc.? And how do you find the research partners that have the same mentality towards deadlines that you do? Okay. Has that been a struggle for anyone? If so, we don't need to go down the line. Just chime in.
Well, I just recently have been publishing a lot on my dissertation because my dissertation data is still relevant. And
Very good.
I've been working with one of my committee members and a colleague of both of ours. So for me, it's been great. So we work virtually. We're all in California, but I'm in Northern California, they're in Southern California. So it's productive, and I do a lot of the orchestrating and a lot of the heavy lifting at first authoring, and so they just chime in where needed. And the third one doesn't really do the content because she doesn't do our research, but she's incredible for the editing and just helping with that process and being able to step back and helping us. So I think that working virtually, if we need to have a phone conversation, we can do that, but mainly Google Docs has been our best friend. And for me, I find that as much as I enjoy writing partners, sometimes I don't really get anything done if I'm working out with them, but if I'm working with other people in person at a coffee shop, we spend most of the time having a conversation and venting. So working virtually, engaging in phone conversations has just been very helpful and productive because we all know our roles, and if we have questions, we're always emailing or texting or again, just working virtually. So that's been very helpful.
Great. Anyone else want to add to that?
This has been a challenge for me up until just recently. I really didn't understand the roles of first author and second author. I don't think I ever really knew what it was like to even really write with other people until I was in this position the first go around, and made a lot of mistakes along the way. And it was through those mistakes that I realized, like, I really like to write with a certain type of person, somebody who is gonna push, somebody who's gonna be a critical person of my writing. Many people that I've written with don't feel like they can do that. They don't, want to put themselves out there and be critical. So I have two main writing partners now that if I'm writing with someone else and I need their expertise, or I'm working on a project, one's a math educator and one's a literacy expert, and so that kind of rounds out our team of math, science, literacy, in project-based learning. I also have a social studies person, but we don't do a lot of writing together. But I've had to, over the years, really develop the ability to say, I appreciate it, I'm interested in what you do, I think it's fascinating, but no thank you, because I just need a certain type of person to support me in my writing, and I know what that person is like. So I might be giving up some significant opportunities doing that, but I also know that there's limited time. So
Yes, and I think we've all just gone on that same path of, even though you may think this is a fantastic research project, but I've tried writing with you before, and I end up doing all the work. Your part, my part, and so forth. So we've all had that, but once you find someone where it clicks, as you did, Lois, once you find that, it's like phenomenal, right? So, do you, as professors, you would assume that we actually do a lot of reading on current research so that we're up to date in our teaching and we're up to date in our writing. Are you finding time to read without reading for a publication, but reading just to gain knowledge? And we can all be honest here, right? What's said in the Selby stays in the Selby. Can we agree on that? Okay.
No. Yeah, no. My reading is solely focused on reading for writing, the purpose of writing, reading for publishing, or reading for teaching. So
I think we can agree with that. Anyone else?
well, when I came back, I instituted a brown bag lunch, and everybody, I know you guys probably, different universities do it differently, but we have a Friday lunch for anybody who wants to bring an article, and we usually share it. It usually only happens about once a month because of other meetings and conflicts on other Fridays, but we don't teach classes on Fridays in our college, so that we can have department meetings and faculty meetings and meetings galore. But that's one of the things that we do, and sometimes there's only two of us that sit there and talk about an article, and sometimes there's 10 of us. So that's been a real success for me, because I feel like, other than that, if I didn't have that accountability, because that was my idea, and so I sometimes don't want to go because I don't have time, but because it was my idea, I'm like, I guess I gotta go because I gotta read this article.
Well, that forces you to keep abreast of current research, and that is a huge challenge for many, whether you're assistant, associate, or full professor, finding that time to actually read for your self-knowledge. What about the health service? How many committees are you serving on? Does your university protect you in that when you're first tenure track, limiting the number of committees, or you step right in there because you have these leadership skills and you want to be a part of the community there for service? So can anyone talk a little bit about your service?
Currently I'm only on 2 committees that,
Which two are they?
so the university committee, the curriculum council, so if you're familiar with that, it's quite extensive, at least for us, as any changes to the catalog or curriculum go through us. But I really enjoy it because it gets me to know other people on campus, so all university committee. Other one is, I don't know the name of it. It's
It's a minor.
minor committee.
Let's not say that if it's, yes, it's minor.
Lois Library Committee, sorry.
Oh, library.
But what I would like to say is that one of the things that I've tried to do, that mentors of mine have told me to do, is to look at service as a way to integrate your research as well, and that's what I've tried to do. So this is the best advice, because part of our service is working with schools in the area and teachers in the area, and so my service is the professional development that I give to teachers, and then what they get back to me in the research piece is fantastic. So great advice for those of you who are mentoring people.
Yes.
So I served my first year, I was protected, I was not required to serve on the committee. My second year, I participated in the Graduate Academic Council, which has been very helpful in having voice, and it directly impacts my program and what's going on throughout campus. But in my MAT role, I often sit on other committees as well, with admissions and marketing and public relations. My university also values outside service as well, so that's been helpful. The challenge has been finding the time to do that. But other volunteer service that's meaningful, especially if it involves teaching, I can also get credit for that as well.
Yeah, so my service, I'm involved in service at the department and college level. I've declined invitations to serve at the university level so far, so I've been trying to do a lot of self-advocacy around protecting my time, which has been a challenge. Challenge is the theme of our panel, so add that to the list. And then I'm really trying to prioritize professional service to my professional organizations that I'm a member of to make my service especially meaningful for my research. So that's something that I'm just personally been working on.
And then Lois mentioned service in your institution and outside, and that's really important because you need to keep abreast of practice so that your research and practice are intertwined. So as far as the journals you've chosen to submit, are they all top tier? No, I guess that's the answer. So can I just get a hands of the audience? How many of you, your institutions, and we don't know where it is, they focus on top tier? Hands. Okay, just a few out there. So how did you decide where to publish?
I think for us, we're encouraged to have a balance of research and practitioner, and so I keep a running log of articles that I've read, and so that gives me also a place to go to look and see where's the most appropriate place. I've learned to first look at the specifications of the journal that I want to find an appropriate journal, and then write to those specifications, which I didn't do at first, and then I'd go try to find somewhere to publish it, and it didn't always work out. That seems like a no-brainer, but it wasn't at first.
Said and done. Yes, thank you.
For me in my field, teacher ed journals have been helpful in literacy, anything dealing with English learners, global education has been very helpful. I like ARA as well, but sometimes what they're looking for is just not what I'm researching at the time. If what I'm researching aligns with what their journal theme is, and I will send it to ARA, so it's not necessarily because of the tier, because for me, writing isn't an issue, sometimes it's the fit. So that is a challenge, because being in teacher ed, it's broad for teacher ed, and the practice, but sometimes it's a narrow fit for more research journals.
Very insightful.
Yeah, and so I try to balance the metrics that are expected with the audiences that I want my work to reach. And so I think especially since a mainstream of my research is focused on developing context, thinking about the accessibility of those really top-tier expensive journals is something that I do consider in my work. So I'm in addition to obviously targeting the top tier, I am intentional in submitting to the lower tier, more internationally focused journals that people in the countries that I'm doing my research in have the means to read.
Yes, we noted your sub-Saharan African target area, so that is outside of, you'd have to go internationally with that. Let me ask you sort of a different question, because I have trouble with this. As director of the School of Education, I get emails, administrative emails, I get emails from students, I get emails from schools, school districts, principals, etc., from colleagues. And I'm going to tell you a secret, please do not allow it to go outside of the Selby. Remember what's said in the Selby stays? But I have been known at a red light now, not while I'm driving, because we live in Florida. At a red light, I'll respond to an email on my phone. And of course my daughter will say, "Mom, what are you doing?" I'm like, "It's illegal, I'm at a red light." But just that pressure of, because okay, when I didn't hear what he said. He's judging me. So that's just a revelation I get. Because if I should wait even 2 hours to respond to the email, oh my goodness, it's now just blossomed into a whole event rather than just a response. So that's, you have your do's and you don't. That's a don't. Don't do that. But other than that, when do you find time to respond to your emails? Are you like me, sneaking it in? Or do you have a certain time? Do you have a cutoff? Oh, I think everyone's still flabbergasted that I answer emails at red lights. Okay. No, not at all? I don't know. Okay. Go ahead.
I don't do that, but I do have it on my phone, and I sort of have my own process of checking email, deleting quickly what I can on my phone so that I don't have to look at it in my office. And then I do try to email or look at email only twice a day. I subscribe to a productivity email newsletter that's the recommended is actually like once a day, but I can't quite make myself do that.
No.
But I try 11 and 3 on the days that I can at 11 and 3 and set my alarm for that. And so I also am very communicative with my students about I will respond to you within 24 hours, but I may not answer your question within 24 hours, so I might just shoot off this, if it's going to require a lot more work than I have time for at the moment. I might say, hey, that's a great question, I'm going to address it in class. Or, hey, that's a great question, give me a little bit of time to research it. And then that goes on my email is actually my to-do list, kind of, right? So it only stays in my email if I have that something to do. And I use all the markers for Google Mail, and I try to do that. I can't say I'm all that successful all the time, but yeah,
But that's a great strategy and sometimes I do that. Just say, I will respond to this in class or a later period once I've done some research on the question, but you gotta remember to go back and to respond to it, actually. Okay, well, go ahead.
So this is another challenge area for me. I used to feel the pressure to just respond immediately, be on my email all the time. And so so one strategy that I've tried this year, partially because I took some maternity leave, but I think I'm gonna stick with it now I'm back full time, but is to remove those email apps from my smartphone.
Oh, my.
So
What
that,
a step.
right. And sometimes, I will admit, so sometimes I'll still go into the email, or not the email browser, the internet browser and get in that way. But I'm not getting those notifications all the time, and it's not as easy for me to respond on my phone all the time. So that's been helpful because I need to be sitting down at my computer. And so my official policy that I've also started putting in my syllabi are that I respond to emails in normal business hours, so between 9 to 5, and I try my best to honor that. It's hard when I'm doing online teaching because I feel like there's more of an expectation of more immediate accessibility, but yeah, tied to that kind of work-life balance thing, sometimes it's just not an option for me to be on my email in the evenings, so it doesn't get answered until I drop my daughter off at daycare the next morning.
So just keep up with us, keep us abreast and how that's working with taking those apps off of your cell phone. How, we'd like to know, as time, and maybe it really allows you to focus, right? Any fire, it'll dim itself. Students they can wait. So just curious. So if you come back to the next conference, just letting us know.
Well, I was going to say similarly to that, I have never, and I don't plan on merging my work email with personal email, and I do have apps on my phone, but not my work email. So I do have to log into the browser, and most of the time it's really not an emergency. I found that it can take, even though I check email often, even throughout the night, for whatever reason, the next morning it can take at least 2 hours just to clear email. But most of the time it's just some random questions or follow-up, or sometimes I'm not the person to email. It's like they couldn't contact the other person or the other person that emailed them, so most of the time it's me navigating communication between people. What has been helpful is during the weekend, I check it whenever I feel like it. And if I don't feel like checking email on Saturday, that's totally fine. I check it Sunday, and it's usually not an emergency. Something that I am going to institute starting in the fall is, and I'm very responsive to people, but on the days that I teach, I've noticed that when I check email on the days that I teach, it just becomes very stressful. So just saying, okay, if it's within 24 hours before I teach, I probably won't be able to get to you, so do email me. And give students a certain hours just depending on the days and the times that I teach. But overall, I think that checking email hasn't really been an issue. It's just being intentional about having those boundaries, and because that's been pretty helpful for me.
That's wonderful. And I think the panel, they have better strategies than some of us who've been in university systems longer. So something just happened. Hello?
Maybe the battery, let me give you the other microphone.
Hello? And so I can say anything I want right now, you won't hear me? Hello? Okay. I have one more question for the panel, and then I want to get the audience involved. If you have advice, comments, etc., I'm sure the panel would love to hear some of that. So my final question is, in some institutions, it's all about numbers. When you get your, year-end review, it's like, how many publications do you have? Do you try to focus on a number so that you can get the number required, whether it's 1 or 2, or is your institution do they not have that particular way of doing things where you have more leeway with your publications?
I would say this has been one of the biggest challenges at my university is it's just really ill-defined. And from the get-go, I wanted numbers because, well, that's how I think, and I was a former math and science teacher in K-12, and that was really hard for me. I wanted a number. I wanted to know whether I was doing well or not, even though my evaluations were always good and I received adequate or better than adequate marks in research it's just really ill-defined, and it annoyed me for a long time until I finally said, well, okay, if you say I'm doing all right, I must be doing all right. I do try to focus on 2 a year for me, just because that's a goal that I have, and I'm trying to just make that happen, but not because what the university necessarily says or doesn't say. So it's one thing that once I am tenured, I would like to work on in our university, is making that a little bit clearer. Yes.
So similarly, in my university saying there's no set number, I also aim for at least 2 a year. I always aim for at least 2 a year or more, so I'm always having multiple manuscripts going. But at my university, again, it's a teaching university, and tenure is also based on a point system, so developing curricula, working on accreditation, like all kinds of university service and activities. There's a number of things. So I'm probably harder on myself when it comes to the research that my institution is. They really do value the teaching and the curriculum that holds more weight, but also having academic publications and reviewing articles and book chapters that also takes a lot of weight as well. But that's my goal, to aim to at least publish at least 2, but I'm always working on multiple manuscripts throughout the year.
Yeah, so similar. For me, 2 a year is kind of that minimum target, but because the research process isn't linear most times, I'm expecting that some years it's going to be a little more, sometimes a little less, and so I'm just trying to get comfortable with that, and not worry too much about the number, but more focus on the quality of the work, because I think if you're doing good quality work, then good publication should come out of it. So just reshifting my frame, I guess, just for myself, so that I don't get overly stressed about the number. And I know some people number them on their CVs, and I'm trying to resist doing that.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure, of course.
Can we ask from the audience?
That's what I wanted to do now. So is there anyone right there?
Sure.
Oh, you're going to serve this. Thank you.
Do you want to go first?
No, someone had their hand up, so now the audience. They're so excited.
Oh, that's nice, thank you. I have a good teacher's voice, so microphones are weird for me. So thank you for sharing all of your experiences. Very interesting to think about all the issues and challenges. One question I had, given that everybody up on the panel are women, what would happen if we put challenges of female assistant professors in maintaining a research pipeline, given, okay, they're nodding, they're like, okay, now, given I've read research about that women are doing more service on the on the tenure track, the emotional labor that women give to students. So you all are already nodding, so I'll just let you go. What happens, what's said in the Selby stays in the Selby.
Uh-huh.
And Facebook.
Oh my, Facebook heard about my driving and red light. Okay, would anyone like to respond to that? Because that's a really huge area for me. Prior to going into teacher education, I was in educational leadership when I first became faculty. And that was my focus of my research, the balancing act that I've seen women have to do primarily. But I want to hear from the ladies here. Do you find, and especially as a new mom, and you're learning, that balance and boundaries, but, something happens, usually, to a child, well, I would go rather than my daughter's father, because I can handle it. I'm the mom, I have to make sure this is that. And maybe that's a matter of letting go. What do you think?
Yeah, so like you say, I'm learning. I'm new, just a few months. My daughter's 3 months old today, actually. So, yeah, all that you said, really, I think, for me, I'll just share one piece, because we could have had our entire conversation around this. But I think as a woman, where I've seen myself grow, even in the past 2 years, is around self-advocacy and trying to protect my time when it comes to service. So I have been invited, it's a nice word, being invited. Oh, they like me, they want me to be doing things, that's great. But no, I've really tried to learn when and how to say no, and I think that it could be my own personality. Maybe it isn't gendered at all, but it's probably tied to gender. Just my challenge with advocating for myself, saying no, not being convinced by others to do something that is of more benefit to others than myself.
And so, let me just, go ahead. You know what? Your question has all of this. Yes. So, if, there are other questions, but as we're passing the microphone, women, who served as your mentors? Males or females? Just curious. How many of you had female mentors? If you're a woman, how many of you had male mentors? So it's, I saw many more hands come up. Is that because women are not in those top positions? That's a whole different discussion. So, the next question?
So mine is kind of threefold. I agree with Dr. Byrd about mothers do have to lead and go and take care of the children, because as women we know that if we do not take care of that process, we just end up sending them in and then having to redo it all over again. So I absolutely agree with that. Wendy, I would love for her to share her expert advice, or was it, I wasn't sure if it was Wendy or Alisha that shared the advice about the newsletter, the email newsletter that would help support, and how you extract certain emails of importance. So I'm not sure. I think the email.
Are you talking about the productivity newsletter or the
Yes, the email, yes. If you could share that information.
Right, and honestly, I can't remember right now who it comes from, but, because I have to look, but the idea behind email is that it can really consume your life if you let it. So the way his process works is you check it at 11, you look for the quick, low-hanging fruit that you can just answer, get it off. If it's something else that needs a larger response, you either respond with, I will get back to you within this time frame, and then it goes on my to-do list. If it is something that I think I can get to in the next 24 hours, it still goes on my to-do list, but I don't necessarily respond. But I limit myself to that hour, and it's usually also lunch for me at that time, so I eat and multitasking. Right. That's part of my work-life balance, is to not leave for lunch, and then I also look again at 3 for those same pieces, and so I just keep my running task list. I use the task list on Google, and it just moves right there. So
I just think my focus was to try and see how do you do that with having online classes and students that expect a response. Immediate response from you at any given time as well. And so
I just try to manage those expectations up front, really, and I think that it's in most of our nature to try to be really responsive to our students, but I just tell them from the beginning, like, you might not get a response for 24 hours. So.
And as a new tenured faculty myself, I wanted to respond to Dr. Byrd's question about mentors. I raised my hand twice because I saw that. I do have both. I was given a female mentor at the university, but what I quickly saw was that it is the males that are in the higher ranked positions. So it was on my own seeking out. I sought out the males that are full professors, that are in administrative positions, that are in higher positions, to be my mentors on my own.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
And that's research right there, you know, when, there's a hand over here.
I forgot.
Right here. Her hand was up.
Thank you. I think this is a great panel, and even though I'm mid-career, I think that I've learned a lot from all of you, and actually this is something I'd like to take back to my campus. My question to all of you is, what are your teaching loads?
Good question. I didn't ask.
I teach 3 or 4
sorry?
3 3-credit courses.
Some are included?
No, it's not.
Your 9 months?
Yeah, we could choose to, but it's extra load, extra pay.
So 3 3?
Same here, 75% teaching, 25% admin, although it doesn't always equate that way on my plate, but 3 courses for this semester, 3 courses per semester.
Does that include your MAT advising?
So it's not even included in advising, right? So that falls in administration among other things.
Okay, so you have a 3 load, 3 and 3, but then you have your MAT advising on top of that. Okay.
That 25 is part of my service, not I don't have administrative right now. So was that 25%?
So
You fit a lot into that.
Right. So the 25 is the advising, overseeing adjuncts, overseeing curriculum, so forth and so on.
On top of your 3 courses that you're teaching.
Anna, we have one more.
My load is a 2-2.
One more question there.
Question? Yes.
Not a question, just a comment with regard to the gender issue and mentoring. In the science education enterprise several years ago, at professional meetings for several years in a row, we did some sessions and discovered unquestionably that the new male professors always had male mentors, and that the female professors never had mentors, period.
Never had this in science?
They had to actually seek out
Have to advocate for
intentionally
themselves.
and with great effort to get anybody to mentor them.
That's in the sciences. That's quite interesting. That research, I think, really adds another layer to what we're discussing. And in the future, it would be great to have some male tenure track up here just to compare stories, just to compare experiences. I think you'll find some differences.
Maybe last question.
Last? Okay.
A few more minutes, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we all remember the excitement of completing our PhD, putting the applications out for the first tenure track position. So you've been sharing your expertise and experiences now that you're sort of midway onto attaining tenure. Are you as optimistic now? Are you as excited now? Has it turned out to be what you had hoped it would be, to be in the professoriate? Are you disillusioned in any way?
Excellent question. Anyone brave enough to answer that?
Oh, I would say, again, a different trajectory of my career. I left I kind of say it was partly just because it was an awesome opportunity that I was very interested in, but also because there was some disillusionment. And I think when I came back, I made sure that I knew I was the captain of the ship and that I was going to make this work for me, and learned a lot those first couple of years. So I'm no longer disillusioned. I now just enjoy the heck out of my job and what I do. So, but I think there was a point that I was not that excited.
So I was very intentional about my job search. Like I didn't do the job search when I was dissertating. I was fully a student and just really enjoyed that time. And I actually wanted to either go back into K-12 or either do community college. Like I always wanted to teach and serve underserved populations, so I never really wanted to do only research. Now that I have the autonomy to really train teachers and be hands-on as well as engage in research and do administration and get all of those experiences, I actually really enjoy it. I love what I do. Often it's finding the time to balance everything, but I do enjoy what I do.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I do feel a sense of disillusionment, and I think a big piece of that is that my experience, or my experience, my perception is that the expectations are just continuously increasing.
Yes.
And that I personally find very overwhelming. And so it's almost like you're running a race and you don't know where that finish line is. And you're going to try as hard as you can to reach it, but it's not clearly defined like we've been talking about. I often question, what is the cost, right? How many hours of sleep am I gonna have to lose? I'm already losing a lot of sleep.
Being a mom too.
Right. But you know, for work purposes and all of that. So yeah, there's definitely amazing aspects of the job, and I wouldn't keep it if there wasn't. Admittedly, it's not exactly what I was envisioning it to be, which I don't think any job really is. So maybe that's just how it is.
Well, I want to get, how many of you out there in our audience are tenured? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, how many of you are tenured track? Oh, there are more tenured here. Of tenured people, if I can ask if that's okay with you.
Of course.
How many of you felt that same sense of delusionment with that Alisha felt? Honestly. 1, 2, okay. And it's interesting, 2 females. We go back to gender again. You felt that sense of being disillusioned. Of those who are tenure track, raise your hand if you feel, you know, some sort of disillusionment. Well, is this what I signed up for? Am I not who I am, or I'm just tenure track professor all the time? The same, yes? Right here? Yes. So I asked that so that Alisha could see we've all been there, whether we're going to raise our hands on Facebook or not, but it's important to know that at some level we've all been there. We felt that same thing. I think we're out of time. Are we? I want to thank all our guests for being so brave, sitting up here. And we hope that you can come back, and wouldn't it be great to have, like, in 3 years, post-tenure, because we know they will earn their tenure. Listen at their strategies they have and how they have that self-efficacy in place. And also I want to thank me to share this. This has been fabulous, and I look forward to seeing everyone at future conferences. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful panel. Dr. James and I would love to thank all of you for being in this panel. You know, we didn't do it intentionally, all females, but I kind of like it because one year I remember I did a panel, it was like 5 men, and I was the moderator. I got hit hard. I said, Jihan, come on. Now, let's see if they're gonna say the same thing again. But I would like to present their certificate of appreciation for being here. Alisha Braun, thank you so much. And Harmon, thank you so much. And Wendy, Ruchti, thank you so much. And Dr. Byrd, also for you, thank you so much. If you please join me here, we will take a picture with you. Thank you.
Ready? 1, 2, one more.
Thank you so much again. I appreciate it.